online live in so long. That's
Yeah,
so. So this is a test, everybody.
this is a
We
test.
we don't
Our
really have
very
anything
first
insightful
time.
to say. That's so funny.
But
Yeah. So I was wanting it to freaking work on my laptop, but I guess that's not the case.
yeah, I was kind of wanting it too. But the way I figured out how to do it, you won't believe what I did. I
What?
searched and found a YouTube video.
Okay. There you go.
And so it said just go to the app and click the plus, and so I did what it
Okay.
said. And yeah, and then it said you could invite a person, so I clicked around till I
Okay.
invited
So
you.
this is
So
a new. I guess this is a new feature, right?
yes, it's a new feature.
Okay.
So
Well,
there
I'm
you
curious.
go. You have to search YouTube to learn how to YouTube.
Yeah, that's just the times, right? But I'm curious on how it uploads, like how the actual like thing is going to look when people are watching. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe I.
we have no idea. And um like I send out a little notification. I'm not sure how to do that, but I don't know. Like, is anybody watching?
Uh, okay, on my end it says no one.
Yeah, I'm seeing 0, 0.
Okay,
So we'll have to try it a couple of different times
this
and
this
just
this is how it looks on
oh,
YouTube on my
oh,
browser. So I'm
okay.
pressing.
So oh, and look, it's showing that one person's watching, so maybe that's you.
That's just me.
Yeah.
So hi everybody.
Hi yourself.
Well, actually, that's what we were going to talk about.
Right. We can talk about that anyway and then see if it posts and then see
Yeah.
what happens. you got
Um.
you got to learn things as they go, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Do we? I mean, let's talk about something though. Uh.
Right. Ask me a question.
Okay. Oh my god.
Oh, not with the
Uh. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I guess my first question I asked you yesterday. We were on Facetime. I asked
Mhm.
you, what were your reason? What are your reasons for not eating meat? So I don't know if you want to speak about that here.
No, I do eat meat.
Oh, you sorry. What are your reasons for eating meat? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so I was a vegetarian for years and years and years, and I just got really, really unhealthy
Yeah.
doing
Okay.
it. Yeah, and so actually the story's pretty funny. So I had a couple of kids, and my first kid, a boy, I just raised totally vegetarian, and I was living way out in the woods, so it was like totally virgin soil, grew all my own stuff. I'm a really good vegetarian cook, so we ate really, really good. Then my daughter was born, second child, and she was born on New Year's Day. And in this small town where I live, on New Year's Day, the very first baby to get born in the year, they give presents. And one of the presents was from the Idaho Cattle Women's Association, and it was a roast in the exact
Yeah.
size of the baby.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, all my family was coming to visit, so I'm like, well, I'll cook up the roast. So I cooked up the roast, all the family came to visit, and my son saw that meat and tasted his very first bite of meat when he was almost 3 years old. And have you ever seen like a starving kitten that's just like shaking,
Mm.
And he just dove into that. And to this day, he doesn't want to eat anything but meat. He's like 40 years old.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I just watched my kid and I'm like, this kid wants to eat meat,
Yeah. That's
And
so
I was
interesting
yeah, I
because
was feeling really, unhealthy, and so
I
I
never
started
went through a
eating.
phase where I ever just didn't eat meat.
Mhm.
Uh, so I was talking to one of my friends who grew up in a strict Hindu home, and
Right.
they just like absolutely nothing, right?
Right.
It's like, yeah, like I had like McDonald's when I was 13, trying to, like secretly, and like,
Yes.
but yeah, like I never understood the reason. Like I'm open to understanding, right? That's why like I ask around. Um, but
Understand why to eat meat or why not to eat meat,
both,
or
both,
both, right,
right?
right.
But I mean, there is the in spiritual traditions, there's the tendency to avoid any meat.
Yes, right.
So yeah, when I asked you, and you said, yeah, humans evolved to eat meat.
Yes, uh-huh.
And I feel like, a lot of people don't take into consideration our actual biological needs,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
Because maybe if being spiritual is about being yourself, well, we got to
Right.
understand, what does the
Mhm,
self want, right? Or what does
mhm.
what is this body that I'm inhabiting uh lean towards to, right? And why is that?
Right, right. I think there's so also I think a lot of it's genetics. Have you ever heard about the blood type diet and blood type? So O blood people, and I'm O, and my son is O. And then you have A and you have B, and the A people had a evolutionary change where they metabolize sugar differently. And so that's a lot of the Middle Eastern people and people in India and stuff like that. And so I think there really are a lot of people that can metabolize more carbs more efficiently. And
Yeah,
you can have a really healthy um vegetarian diet. And so I
yeah,
think it's really valid that there's a lot of people. Now, I've also heard that Tibetans, right? They eat meat, but they're kind of
yeah.
basically vegetarian,
Was
and so
the
me
Buddha's last meal pork or something? I swear I read that before.
yeah, 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 and so I think there's a lot of different things, and so I think some of it's genetic, and then also, like, India, they just evolved the whole society to, they can pack more people in
Hmm.
by all being vegetarians,
Hmm.
so, I think if you're doing it for spiritual reasons, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Why do you
Because
say that?
because it's so easy to turn a spiritual idea into stupidity.
Yeah,
If you're just holding on to it, like, imagine that
yeah,
I had been holding really spiritually to my vegetarianism, right? And my son starts
yeah,
eating the meat. I would have gone, "You're bad," right?
yeah,
And I would have made the son not eat it, and I would have made him be ashamed to not
yeah,
eat it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you do it for spiritual
Well,
reasons, then your
yeah.
mind isn't open to figure out what you need and what society needs. Another thing we were talking about yesterday is that the world needs animals, and it needs grazing animals to um, fertilize farms and things like that. And then there's bugs all over. You can't have an absolutely vegan
Mhm.
plant. It needs decomposing
Yeah. So I guess
stuff.
when I asked my friend, so like, why do you think I eat meat, and why do you think of it? It's just like, I come from a family that just eats it. And he's just like, yeah, you guys just like don't see the animal when you guys are eating it. You guys aren't thinking, oh, this is a soul and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I not at all. That was never anything like in my cognitive considerations, like at all. Uh,
But
and then
why is an animal more cognitive and awake than a carrot?
I guess I'm failing to understand
So
what you
in
mean.
native traditions, everything is alive and everything can speak to us.
Yeah.
Trees are cognitive beings, and actually science is starting to believe this too. Not just trees, but the forest, all their roots, trees communicate with each other in the forest.
Hmm.
And so why would we think that a cow is more conscious than a carrot?
Hmm. Okay. Oh,
That's
yes, 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 yes.
that's
Okay. 100%.
dividing the world up to suit our
I love
brain.
that. Okay, yeah, that's so interesting. I love that. Okay, so wow, yeah, it got me thinking. Exactly, because I mean, even in these non-dual meditations that like audio ones, right? That I was listening
Mhm.
earlier on in like me learning meditation and stuff. They used to be like, okay, just observe the object and just see how it's also conscious, right?
Right.
So this isn't something that like I mean I have personally experienced, but I mean there's just this idea that look, consciousness is in everything, right?
Right.
And it's there's
Mhm.
not just like it's not just specific to animals or alive things, right? Things that communicate, things um, that have like functional interactions, right? It's like
Right.
even just objects that are still. So, I mean, if you're taking that idea, right, and also applying it to carrots and vegetables, anything, I mean, yeah, you can see discrepancies in that.
Right. And if you want to really, go deep down the rabbit hole of non-duality, your consciousness looking at consciousness. So if your consciousness is looking at a carrot, the carrot's consciousness is there
Yes.
just as much.
Well, okay. So another thing that got me considering this whole meat and vegetarian stuff was a J. Krishnamurti interview, and he was
Hmm.
just like, I can never eat a meat. I can never eat an animal and stuff. And I was like, he's like, I've never eaten meat in my life. And I mean, I just like saw uh, the passion in that, and it just
Yes. Hmm.
curious. That's when I started asking around.
Well, and he hasn't really examined it thoroughly. So my teacher Osho was raised a Jain,
Okay.
right? And they're the one they wear masks across their face so that they can't accidentally inhale a bug, right? I mean, they're really, really, really super strict vegetarians. And Osho said that, he didn't care vegetarian or not vegetarian. He saw that that was not necessarily a true thing. But he also realized that he personally could not get beyond his conditionings on that. He's like, it's just too deep. I can't go by it. And so his funny thing was he wouldn't eat spaghetti because Janes won't eat anything red because if something's red, you can't see whether or not there's meat in it. And so he couldn't even make himself eat vegetarian spaghetti
Wow.
because the conditionings were just so strong. And everybody is that way. I mean, our societies are so ingrained
Yeah.
in our heads.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I was telling you yesterday about I met that young Navajo boy, and I was talking to him uh and I asked him, "Do you know who you are?" And he said, "Yes." So here I was just walking down the street in Boulder and I meet an enlightened kid, right? And the thing that was so funny about it is I've been reading all these native things that are basically saying that they're saying we've been here the whole time, humanity has been awake the whole time, and I've like been believing it. And it just really seems and feels to be true, but then I had to start laughing when I was talking to this kid because he's like, yes, and I'm here. And
Yes.
I realized that I had just done the stupidest white person thing you could possibly do because I had been thinking, "Oh, look, I've discovered Indians." But no, they were here all along. And he's just laughing. He's like, "Yeah, and I've been here all along." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, it's like it's so obvious when you
The
see it,
conditioning
right?"
runs deep.
Conditioning runs deep, and you have to dig each individual one out by itself, just like the carrot and the cow.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
who is more awake, a carrot or a cow?
love
You
that.
know, or so.
Wow, yeah, that got me thinking deeply because I have discussions with my friend, and he basically says, if someone's like brought up in a fundamentalist household and stuff, right? Whether it's a Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, if they're Jewish, then just take the more Kabbalah route. If you're Muslim, just take the more Sufi route. If you're Christian, just take the more theosis route and stuff, right?
Unless you wanna blow your mind. I
Yeah,
mean, if
so
you wanna stay in the groove of your conditionings, but if you want out of it.
yeah, but it's even so hard to just get out of it, right? That's the whole thing. So it's just like even with me, I mean, you'll never hear me like not say inshallah, mashallah, alhamdulillah, right? And like to me, these are I mean, I've talked to Egyptians on the airplane that are atheists and like they still use that language,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's like
yeah.
it's so ingrained in the language. It's like to a good analogy, maybe you could say, like on how conditioning can run deep. It's almost like language in itself, right? Where
Yes.
it's like you can't just take the verbs and the nouns out or something, or just like a section of the language itself, right? I mean, you're
Mhm.
literally going to have to learn a whole nother language and
Yes.
speak only that, right? As long as you're to some degree like in this form with your conditioning, speaking with your condition,
Mhm.
like it's gonna be there.
But
So
the good news is it doesn't completely totally matter. You know, so
that too,
long as
that too.
you yeah, so long as you have like a clear line to yourself and know who you are, then so like me talking to this kid, right? I was able to just laugh at myself and go, "What a stupid, lame, conquering culture kind of a thing to do, to think that I had like discovered." It's like, no.
It's so interesting. Yeah, the way,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but it doesn't matter because I'm able to just like laugh at myself and see. And here's what's so important about this is that if we're going to solve global warming, we have to be willing to blow our minds in these ways and just be willing to change our mind about thing after thing after thing. Because the only way we can solve it is by making huge mistakes. We got to
yeah,
jump in and make a huge mistake and then see it and laugh and then make
yes.
a new mistake
Just
and
like
then
what we're doing here with this live.
yes. Yeah, like,
We
oh my
started
god,
up this live and we were intending to make mistakes so we can see our
right.
missteps and so we can learn and actually know what to do next time.
Exactly, and we still don't know what's gonna happen when we end it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the fuck is even gonna get uploaded, right? So
Anything could happen. Yeah, we're sitting here talking to nobody. We could just be it could just disappear completely and
I
we
did
never
I did see
know,
like
so.
two people show up. I don't know if you can see.
Oh,
There's
did
like
they
the
come and go?
okay.
Yeah.
Do you see beside the like thumbs up button? There's
Yeah, well, I have to
like
put on my glasses. No, I see zeros.
so it says zero now.
Oh, you
On
saw
my
some.
phone, I think earlier it said two, but I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I could just be wishing.
See, they came on and thought we were really lame.
Good.
And they're right.
Okay, so that's interesting, because even to think like, I mean, bro, look, I've always had a kind of like the whole celebrity vision that people can have, like, oh my god, celebrities, oh my god, people, like, I kind of always like, thankfully, have been able to see through that.
Yes.
Uh, so like, I really don't have that with like Jay Krishnamurti as much as I engage with that material.
Mhm.
I don't have this wow, I don't know. Like the whole celebrity thing, like even you were talking about yesterday with the girl that was acting,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's just like, those tendencies have just it's so easy to see the illusion in that. I mean,
Yeah,
anytime
yeah,
like I see myself doing that, I can easily catch myself.
yeah.
Um, but not to sound like that, but you know, to think like even Krishnamurti, the mind he inhabited, right? For him to have conditioning that like I mean it's we're all subject to it. It's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
it's just what it is.
And he didn't have any reason to dive into it. and really question it.
Yeah,
I mean, way back then, I mean, like right now, we're grappling with all sorts of things like how do we turn the consumer world into a growing world that we're inside of, and how do how do we care for all the land where we have to grow food, and we're just discovering that you got to have animals on the land,
yeah.
in order for everything to work well. So he didn't have any reason to dive into that. I had a friend who was just Krishnamurti crazy, just loved Krishnamurti, because of all the intellectual stuff. And then um so some gal came out with a book. I guess all the time that Krishnamurti was teaching, he was having an affair with this gal and kind
Okay.
of sneaking around with her and stuff. And so then she came out with this book, and so he went into this huge crisis. Like, oh my gosh, was he really enlightened? Was he not enlightened? Is it all bullshit? And I was just, well, of course he did. I mean, here he was living this totally isolated, crazy life. The guy needed some love and care, and sounded like he really got along with this girl. And, they'd have like, ti he'd get time away from everybody else and go spend it with her. And he really loved her. But
Mm.
he couldn't come out and say, oh, here's, you know.
Yeah.
And so my response to it was, well, of course.
Hmm.
And my friend just went into, and I couldn't, there was no way I could tell him. I'm like, well, of course. And he just couldn't believe it. He
Well,
was like, no,
where do those perceptions even form in the first place? Like, do people just think? I mean, you just don't become like you're just not human anymore. Like you get to like a
exactly.
human just becomes not human. Like I
It's
mean,
the
like you.
huge enlightenment myth. It's awful. All the
Yeah,
things
that's.
that you expect your enlightened people to be, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Well, first of all, male,
yeah, yeah. There you go.
right? Second of all, just perfect, and just sitting there. These are
Yeah,
really
it's
damaging stories.
yeah. I mean, so like this is why I think even Western psychology is important, right? Because we can
Right.
even like understand, what is what do we see in humans generally when it comes to personality psychology? Even when people have strong experiences, whether it be near death experiences, whether it be
Mhm.
awareness experiences, whatever it may be, right? Does is there some kind of personality change, right, statistically that we can see? And yeah, like I mean, Western psychology doesn't really show that with any experience, right? So the most profound, even a near death experience or an awakening, right? You don't even see personality changes, dramatic ones, yeah, after that, right? People for
Really?
the most part,
This is what psychology says?
it's from what I think, like from
Yeah. Uh-huh.
well, yeah, from the data I think I've seen. Like it's like for
Mhm.
the most part, personality, like there are aspects of personality that stay the same, right? So and
Mhm.
that kind of makes sense, right? Like I'm just my English, for example, which you can maybe say as a aspect of personality. I'm not just gonna like forget English and start speaking a new language, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
so like there are things that remain, right? You don't
Mhm.
there's never any experience where whole new conditioning, whole new memories, a whole new person in
You
some
can't
kind of
completely reboot the hard drive, is what you're saying.
there you go. And a lot of the stuff is like it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
will be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's not like I mean, you just like lose the ability to remember, right? If the all
Right. Which
memories are
is
still there.
that quote that you were sending me a couple of days ago, where someone was like, what was it? When you're enlightened, then just, I mean, it sounded horrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They
Yeah.
were saying it's scary. It's like
Right.
it can realizing that there's only nothingness is so scary, but it just remained there. So
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. 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 Which is, I mean, so much. Well, we live in a time where people are kind of wanting to not exist. You know, what is that called?
Nihilism.
Nihilism, yeah. Yeah. And so people are using particularly non-duality as kind of like a self-suicide, where it's like, well, I can kill my brain, but I mean, like,
Wow.
then what?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Never
Whereas what
thought
we
about.
need is real humans. One of the, let's see, gosh, I wish I could keep my books straighter in my head, but one I just read. Oh, I think it was the Evolved Nest, and she was talking about, how she said, "We didn't evolve in the forest. The forest created us. The forest created primates because
Mhm.
it needed primates." And then one of the thing that, anthropologists are always talking about is like, so why did human beings leave the trees and go out to the grasslands? Because the grasslands called us. The grasslands
Yeah, yeah,
needed
that makes
us. The trees had created
yeah.
us. The grasslands called us to come out. You
Yeah,
know,
it's almost so obvious.
yeah,
Yeah.
why did humans go to up to Europe? Because Europe called us up there because Europe needed us.
Mhm.
You know, the land needs human beings. And we've
Mhm.
gone temporarily crazy, but we can go back to being like stewards of, nah, that even sounds like bosses of, participants in nature,
Yeah.
where we're a vital part of nature as much as nature is a vital
Yeah,
part of
well,
us.
it goes back to some of your videos about non-duality is not about you, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
and I mean, as long as there's this self-centered motivation, I mean, how
Yes,
far you can only get so far with that, right? Not even just in process of or any kind of realization, but just also just being a productive human being, right? When you know
right,
it's like I mean, even what self-centeredness in itself is almost like an illusion because it's
right. It's a
I mean,
disease.
what are you really looking at in isolation?
Right. Yeah, yeah. So when I was really young, I ran away from society and I moved up into the woods and I lived in a teepee all by myself. And it'd been my dream for a really long time. It took me a really long time to get it all together. And, some people gave me a teepee. And so I went out. Then there I am living in the teepee. And I'm just, after a while, I'm sitting there and going, well, here I am just sitting in this meadow all by myself. I'm not really a complete human being just sitting here all
Yeah.
by myself. It's like, well, yeah, the trees and, dogs and, nature and everything. But that was when realized that a human being is a human being,
Mhm.
not an isolated separate
Yeah.
thing. So if your spiritual search or anything you do is completely selfish, you're not going to get anywhere
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you're
But
creating more self, not
well,
not
that's another thing we were talking about yesterday, and I mean, I can just admit so fast that there are so many selfish motivations when it
Oh
comes to
yes.
like yeah, I mean, the whole reason I even started meditation was
Hmm.
yeah, I can increase my focus, get rid of ADHD symptoms, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, they're still there, and I'm sure,
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm
Hmm.
not the only victim of this. I think most people are actually a victim of this, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. But it's a good thing too because it got you started in it and it is makes you go. So when we were in Colorado, we were at this dance camp and there's all these Tibetan monks. And what they do is they travel around and they go bless land and people pay them so that they can take the money back and support their monastery. And so all these Tibetan monks came up and then said, "Does anyone have any questions?" And so this one girl started asking this question, and she said, um, "I'm trying to annihilate all desires and all attachments." and I'm not able to do it.
In other words,
And
I desire to have no desires.
exactly, exactly. And but the bus driver guy or the, guy who was leading the tour, he looks at her and goes, "Not the desire for enlightenment, right?"
Nice. Okay, okay,
Like,
perfect.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, it's really false to say that you got to be searching for enlightenment but not have a desire for it,
yeah.
because that's just false right there.
Mhm.
It's a circular rabbit hole, a black
Uh-huh.
hole that you fall into. So, and then, but here's what was really funny. So, then the guy who was translating, he looks at her and goes, "I don't understand the question." And so she tried to say it again. "I'm trying to annihilate all desires and all attachments." And he's like, "I don't understand the question." And she had to ask like about 10 times, and he's still like, "I don't understand the question." So it's like, that's not even a thing
Yeah,
in Tibetan Buddhism, to be trying to annihilate all desires. And so
yeah.
finally, he asked the head guy. So he had to, speak in Tibetan and ask the guy. And the guy like talk, 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 talked. And then he translated it back. And he basically, the answer was, after enlightenment, then desires can go away and attachments can go away.
Mhm.
She was trying to get rid she was trying to pretend she was enlightened and look
Yeah,
enlightened, as if that would
yeah.
bring on
Yeah, yeah,
enlightenment
yeah.
instead
Which
of the
yeah.
other way around.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Right?
So, interesting. Uh, hey, I guess I have to get this question answered first. But so, how important would you say, or what contribution does meditation have then in the process?
So much of it depends on your motivation,
Okay.
and on your environment too. So I meditated really a lot, but I was a sannyasin of Osho when he was alive, and I was living in a like commune full of sannyasins. So it's like meditation was really the thing. But Osho set the context of
Yeah.
it, that meditation wasn't about just disappearing. Meditation was about becoming really, really clear. And then the other thing he had us do was work our asses off, and stay really, really clear while you work. So work was as much
What
of it.
what was what were the practical things you guys were doing? What was specific?
Well, I mean, just going and working a job.
Oh,
So
okay.
I would go to a job and I would be the best that I could
Mm.
possibly be, and just clear and focused. And then I'd sit down and meditate. So the meditation was like uh, in this context. So if you have meditation and it's kind of like in a context of what I call the forever search, you don't believe that enlightenment is actually possible, but you're meditating anyway, it kind of turns into a self-centered weird thing.
Yeah. Well, turns
Yeah.
into or just always was.
maybe it just al- Maybe it just always was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um.
starts out selfish and then ends up selfish.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there was another thing that we mentioned not yesterday, but in a previous FaceTime. We've only had two conversations. This is our third, but I think it was something on the line. I forget what we were talking about. The possibilities of humans changing, humans recognizing who they are, and actually like contributing in a healthy way to the world, right?
Right.
And we both kind of like agreed, like there's all of these doubts uh, about the possibilities of that, but you know, it was we kind of agreed. Wait a minute, like I just can't see how it can't be possible. Like I just can't see how the it's impossible. I just can't see how human beings do not have the capacity to wake up and contribute to the world. in a healthy way,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
It,
It just doesn't make sense that that would be so.
well, I mean, like, just even just observing myself, right? And just what if you just look at like the principles of change itself, like any positive change, right? That
Mhm.
is a movement that happens,
Mhm.
right? Like even like towards like the quote unquote worst, right? Like
Mhm.
change happens. I mean,
Mhm.
regardless of where the trend is going, I mean, it's just a real thing. So the possibility is there. And I never really understood when people said it's impossible for, a realization to be uh, spread out like to the majority. I never understood why that's like impossible.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible either.
A lot of
I
people
think
have those beliefs though.
yeah. Yeah. It's part of that nihilism,
Yeah.
that but you'll always notice that whenever anybody's talking about that, they're always talking about them and not themselves, kind of
Yeah.
in a subtle way. But you'll also notice
Yes.
that they also do hate themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, how can you not hate yourself if you hate humanity, you know?
How can you not hate yourself? Yeah, of course, 100%.
How can you
And then the
trust
other,
yourself
yeah,
if you don't trust humanity?
and the other way as well, how can you trust humanity if you don't trust yourself as
The
well?
other
Because
way,
that
yeah,
is you, right? That's like what we
right.
project.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Oh, they're
one
just like me.
really terrible thing is how people, when somebody does something nice for people, like a stranger, people are surprised. But
Yeah.
it's like, no, that happens all the time. You open a door for somebody, or you see somebody walking down the road, and and down the sidewalk, and you move over a little bit so they can go by. And I mean, you just watch the way human beings interact with each other, and there's just tons of care and attention, just
Yes.
all the time.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to some of our psychological mechanisms that we have just about projection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we really see what we think we are, right?
Hmm. Right.
It's
Right.
it's I mean, if we're a greedy person, I mean it's what we're going to see, right?
Hmm.
Within.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm a person that I believe in change because I see it within myself, I mean, then I can also say for sure, then it's also in that human body, just like me as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, and then it makes you more curious and more willing to experiment with things,
Yeah.
try different things out. It's like, well, I can change, so
Mhm.
let's let's do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think that a very dramatic, um, large scale change is possible. And I've seen dramatic large scale changes happen in my life. So when I was a senior in high school, that was the very first year that girls were allowed to wear pants to school.
Hmm.
We had to wear dresses
Hmm.
my whole life. My grandmother never wore a pair of pants in her whole life.
Hmm.
So that's,
There's
now
change right there.
there's change right there.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we look at, what were the multiple things that caused that, right? And there's some kind of positive movement towards that. There's some kind of movement towards, you know, I- something isn't working. Let me move towards that which does work, right? And I mean that is just within us. We
You'll
like,
notice that people always want freedom. And
yeah,
so what happened was girls were given a voice, a very
yes,
small voice. And the
yes,
first thing we demanded was to wear pants.
yeah, yeah,
Don't make me wear a dress. And not only that, we were told how long the dress could be, exactly how many inches it could be above your knee.
yeah.
And so it's like the second we had the opportunity for freedom, we demanded it.
Yeah.
And then once people start seeing like how slaves we are to cars
Yeah.
and that we can be free of that.
Yeah.
If we do something globally, then boom, that can happen pretty fast. When I was in Denver, I mean, I live in a very different place up in Idaho, but we went down to Denver. Everybody's driving like Priuses and electric cars and stuff around.
Mhm.
Those are still very expensive, but I mean, we can do so much better, and as soon as we start demanding it, it
Yeah.
will create it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's just that. I mean, I have a I would consider my understanding of humans pretty like radically compassionate because like in a weird way I do believe like people. So there's this concept in Western psychology that we are fundamentally rational agents, right? So we choose that which works rather than that which doesn't work. Any
Mhm.
decision, like we have a goal in mind, right? We're gonna do that what contributes towards the goal rather than that doesn't contribute. So we have this rational agency in our brains, right?
Mhm.
And just because of that, I think that to some extent, I mean, we're going to, if we can just see what actually doesn't benefit the world or us or in the way, right? Then obviously we're going to move towards that which does benefit, right? So
Exactly.
even someone who is uh, making a choice, right? In a weird way, I think it's probably more accurate to say that it is an unskilled step rather than like a wrong or step because like nothing's really wrong. Everything is just a process happening, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
This person is choosing to their degree of understanding.
Right. Mhm.
So, and again, if that's the case, then obviously, with more awareness of what actually doesn't work, what actually doesn't does work. I mean, obviously, we're going. The possibility is just there. Like it's off. It's there
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
us.
Well, I think the number one thing that proves that we are going to solve the climate crisis and make a better world is the cell phone.
Okay.
Because they designed the cell phone so that it's fun and easy and useful to work, right?
Hmm.
And boom, everybody has one and they're expensive.
Yeah.
These are not cheap things, but almost everybody has one. And people are
Yeah.
going crazy, with their brains, into their phones just too much. But people are going to start seeing that, oh, we can do better than
Yeah.
this. And as soon as so if we had cars and transportation that worked as well as a cell phone works, we
Yeah.
would not buy cars,
Yeah. 100%. I
right?
mean,
Yeah.
that's just the thing. Like, another reason, there's you can see a decrease in engagement with phones, right? Like even just recently, because people use it so much. So the cool thing about humans as well, we get tired of things, like naturally, right? Which
Yes,
makes it
yes,
like easier to let go, right, and
yes.
try something else, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, you
corruption.
like hit this wall and you're just like, ah,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
mean,
don't
like
like this anymore. Hmm.
literally, corruption can only last so long.
Yeah.
Like that's the cool thing about like humans is like it can only produce so much dopamine for us until like it's no longer a source.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the next few years go because there is a lot of interesting things
yeah,
happening and bubbling up stuff that that I never could have ever imagined
yeah.
possible.
So I don't even know if anyone's watching this live, but I guess I'll say if
Oh, we
anyone
have a person. Oh, we have a like.
do it,
We don't
okay.
have a person, but
I
we have a
did see
like.
some numbers go back and forth, but
Okay.
it was probably just like one person's like entering and exiting right away. But if anyone is rewatching this, Restoring the Kinship Worldview is a book that I do recommend as like highly, right? And that could be found on Zareen's website. I
Mhm,
personally
mhm.
bought it, and yeah, lots of good reflections. In many ways, I think that can help, give people the mindset that is probably needed for the contribution of good, right? And
Mhm,
also just like understanding, what damage have we done so far, and
mhm.
there's almost this sense of responsibility that it grows, which is awesome because
Right.
I mean, we function off our values. So if we can start to learn what is actually valuable, things become easy.
Mhm. Right, right. Coming together is going to be so much easier. Yeah.
Yep. Uh,
Well, let's see what happens next.
uh,
So, hey, we've been going about 50 minutes here. We
okay.
have no idea what's going to happen when I click the button to end it. I don't even know where the button is. Yeah, let's see. Okay, I'm going to start clicking around on stuff and
Right.
something's going to happen and we don't know what it's going to be.
Okay.
So, suddenly, so what are these? Oh, I can remove the guest. No, share, share. I don't want to. What happens if I click that? In stream.
Bye bye,
Okay.
guys. Bye bye.
Bye. Here we go. In stream. See ya.